Hello and welcome to Breaking the Cycle. My name is Dr. Alan Hyde, and today we are joined by a special guest for our last show of the year. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We are joined by Lovie Baxter. She is not just a nurse practitioner, but has a background in master's level social work, and she runs a Touch of Love care home here in the Hearst Euless Bedford metroplex of DFW. We're going to talk about her background, what got her into this work, and we're just excited to have her on for our last show of the year. So stay tuned. We'll get into all the information. But Lovie, thank you for joining us.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I know we had been coordinating for some time to get you in, and
Right.
it just it's wonderful that it happens to be the last show of the year, and we
Hey.
can, like you said, we can go out with a bang.
That's right. It's my personality, so it fits, right?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Perfect.
Let's do it.
So you're on all the social medias. We met through the Chamber of Commerce, and we met while you were out there talking about a Touch of Love care home. I want to hear a little bit more about it, your work with the elderly, and what got you into working with that community. If you'd
Yeah,
like to.
so I've been in healthcare for over 30 years. It kind of tells my age, right? But geriatrics has always been my passion. From day one, I always have gravitated toward my seniors. And so when I stepped into healthcare and started working as a social worker, I saw the discrepancies that were related to healthcare. And then going into my nursing degree and nursing career, I started working within the discrepancies. And so I wanted to figure out how I could make a change. And to be honest with you, when I looked at the big setting, I felt like I could not. And so I wanted to just chip away at making a difference. And so that's kind of what birthed A Touch of Love care home. I had I had patients in care homes. I had patients in assisted living facilities, patients in nursing homes. And I just saw a huge difference as it related to healthcare. And when I went into the care homes, my patients looked good. They were happier. They just seemed to respond better to the care that was being provided as opposed to the other settings. And so I tapped into that model to look at how can I step into this space, make it my own, and provide excellence in care. That is the foundation of everything I do. I'm a lady of faith, and so my faith combined with wanting to provide excellence when it comes to healthcare is the foundation of A Touch of Love. And so I looked at different models and looked at different aspects and brought it all together. And here we are today, almost 10 years later. As my tagline says, we're providing the care that our senior citizens deserve.
There's a lot of branches that we could go down that I'm very curious about, just exploring with you and hearing your perspectives. But what, with a care home and specifically yours, what would you say is kind of the difference between your care home and the structure and infrastructure that you've built versus kind of some of the, I don't know, let's say like expensive retirement home kind of situations? Like, we can get into all the weird stuff with some of that and how yours is standing apart from those kind of aspects. But what is different about your care home that the people that might come across this would say, like, I need to send my loved one who needs a care to your
Yeah.
facility?
Great question. I think it boils down to the heart behind it. My name is Lovie, obviously, and so everything I do is surrounded by love. I think that's just how God created me, and so I try my best to live up to that. So it starts with that. Why am I wanting to take care of these patients? What do they need? How can I do it? And so when you peel back the layers and you look at that, I'm bringing these senior citizens into a home setting where they can get their needs met. And I found that again, that just was not being done. And no fault to the bigger facilities, but when you're looking at the patient to staff ratio, 1 to 30, 1 to 20, it's almost impossible to give everybody 100%. And I don't care how good of a clinician you are, nurse you are, CNA you are, you cannot do 100% over and over and over again at that ratio. And so I focus on the smaller ratios. 1 to 3, 1 to 4. I have a new facility that is in the process of being built. It'll be about 1 to 10. Still concentrating and focusing on meeting the needs of each individual that we bring into our care, ensuring that whatever disease process they have, whatever needs they have, can we meet them? And I look at that when I'm bringing inpatients to my homes, and I make sure that my staff are trained on the specific needs of each patient. And when I look at care planning for these patients, it's a lot that goes into that. And I just feel like, well, I can't speak to what's going on at other facilities, but I know at my facility, that is where we stand apart, because I am peeling back the layers, looking at how can I make this individual's life better. And that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
And this is extended care. So like they live there, they could, after in their full retirement into the death process, they
That
could
is
live
correct.
there and receive care.
That is correct. My homes are designed to age in place. So I have patients that walk through the door. I have patients that have to, be wheeled through the door. But wherever they come to me, they do not have to leave until they transition from this earth.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's huge. A lot of places, as you start the declination process, your body starts to decline. You need additional services. You have to move. And with senior citizens, that is just not what you want to do. The last thing you want to do is move them a lot as they are, aging, especially when you're talking about the different disease processes like dementia and Alzheimer's, even Parkinson's disease. The more you move a client or a resident or a patient, the worse their disease process can be.
And do you get geriatric clients that are coming from all over the U.S., or is it mostly DFW? I guess what I'm trying to get at is, like, let's say someone does live in another state and they're not able to find something that's like affordable or covered by insurance. Like, is that something you work with where for individuals out of state that just need somewhere to land?
Yeah, so it's funny you bring that up. I had a call about maybe 4 or 5 months ago from a family in Oklahoma, and they do not have adequate care homes there. They saw me on social media. They stalked me, and that's their words. And they called some of my community partners here and asked about me. So basically, they did their due diligence. They called me up and they asked to move their loved one here. And why I bring that story up is because that's huge for a family to relocate their loved one to a different state just to be up under my care. I take a lot of pride in that. To this day, their loved one is still with me. They make the trip once every 2 weeks to come and visit. But we have different measures in place where they can tap in and just kind of check in on their loved one. Technology helps out tremendously. But all in all, the fact that they trust me being in a different state to provide the care for their loved one, it's just huge. And I think it talks and it speaks to what we're doing at a Touch of Love Care Home.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I work with clients in California, and I even have a few where I'm like, oh, maybe I need to give them your information, because they're looking for stuff for their elderly parents and are struggling to find things that are affordable or that they would trust.
Right.
And so maybe we could talk a little bit about that. It's like, what do you think, right? Because you've worked in this age range, right? It's like, what do you think it's about in modern day society where that end of life care has gotten just so expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it does take, there's a cost involved with care, okay? Our healthcare system is not set up to provide quality care, unfortunately. I don't think that that is something that is in the past has been paid attention to. Now that we have more seniors that need care than we can even provide, we're in crisis mode, right? Affordable care is a problem. It's a huge problem. I get calls all day long for patients that don't have near the amount of even my starting rate. Okay. So the problem is where are they going to go? What are we going to do with them? And that's something that I am constantly trying to come up with a solution for. Early in my practice, I'll be honest with you, I got in trouble by letting my heart run my business.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is taking in people who really couldn't afford my services. But I've had to kind of switch from that. But the problem still exists.
Yeah.
And so that's why you see me in the community educating people on their options. You see me working with the Chamber of Commerce. You see me working with people, at the state level that are making decisions so that we can adjust what we're doing to provide better care, better options for care.
Yeah, because it's a multi-leveled issue. It's not the providers. It's almost always insurance. On the back end, even for the provider, it's almost always insurance, which seems to be an inevitable conversation no matter which provider field
Right.
we're discussing. There's some legislation conversations there, blah blah blah. But I think ultimately, like people are willing to pay. I think a big part that you were touching on is like finding the place where you can trust that the people care is
Right.
the real crux of the issue. A lot of times where people will get hung up on the conversation of the cost because I don't know. It's like we could look a lot of places and they paid a ton of money for a place like you were saying where the ratio is 1 to 30 and they did not care for their loved one. And I think that's the real
Yeah.
crux of the issue. It's not actually the money. It's what am I paying for?
Right. And I was at a senior center just on yesterday, and that topic came up because we have been taught that pretty equates to good care. Okay. So when you go into certain buildings, the foyer is top notch, right? They spend a lot of money on making sure that that entryway is beautiful. You have beautiful chandeliers, you have, desk and just artwork and whatever you need to aesthetically draw in people. The problem is what's going on, like you said, once you get past that foyer, right? And I talk to families about that I may not have the most prettiest homes in the community, but behind those doors, my people are loved on, they're cared for, they're treated like humans, and we have a standard of excellence. And you cannot get that just looking for a pretty. Now, we look good, don't get me wrong, right? But it's not about that. But that is what society thinks equates to good care.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about this last week in an unrelated, related in different ways, but like substance use treatment. It's become glorified spa treatment, right? Who has the nicest facility?
Right.
Is your treatment center on the bluffs overlooking the ocean? But these people aren't staying sober, right? It's like what's going on behind the doors is the care that's being offered. And that's any provider, right? It's like when the care is there, people feel and get better. But when the priority is the nicest facility and the big fancy things, well, then that's the priority, not the humans.
Yep.
So it's funny. These
is.
are always the cornerstones that come up when you're working with people. And our society, it's not that society has gotten it wrong. It's that our focus is improperly focused.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I love bringing in families for Q&A sessions, and I'll ask them, what do you think are the top 5 things you should look for when you go into a facility or a home? And they'll, oh, make sure it this and that, just stuff that really doesn't matter. And then I'll give them 5 things or 4 things that they should look for. And they're like, oh, well, we didn't think about that. Or, oh, well, that makes sense now. And you just don't know what you don't know, right? I mean, that's why I spend the majority of my time now in the community teaching, educating, and not just seniors. I talk to families. Of course, my passion is geriatrics, but the majority of my time right now is spent just talking to adults that are what I call in the sandwich generation. They're trying to take care of their children and their families, and now mom, dad, Aunt Susie, Uncle Jim are getting older, and they need care. So the adult is stuck in the middle trying to figure out, oh my goodness, how do I do both? Because there's no manual for that. And I spend a lot of time talking to them and just educating them on how to handle it, how to make the decisions and what to look for, so that they're not just over inundated with information that's inaccurate. Yeah. Because that leads to emotional decisions, and it leads to the wrong decision of you having to move your loved one 3 and 4 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is, huh? It's the Gen X millennial kind of into the boomers, but a little younger than that are kind of sandwiched in between. Well, what is that percentage that's growing towards like 70% of individuals that are pushing 70 that still have to work and can't retire, but they're kind of at that age where they start to need those skilled living homes. And we're in a really tricky time with not a lot of options that are very trustworthy. Right. Well, I want to amend that a little bit. It's like there are trustworthy people who care.
For sure.
And your facility definitely is. And just like interacting with you and watching the way that you engage with people, it's like, well, yeah, there are people who care, and getting them the proper information, which leads into, maybe a long-winded way to ask this question, but could you walk us through just kind of like, okay, client comes in, they're going to be going to live there with you in your care. What does a typical day look like for them? What types of professionals do they have access to? What kind of activities are they doing? Could you give us just like your elevator pitch on what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I run my homes like a facility. And when I say that, it means there is structure, okay? Because with structure comes health and wellness, okay? So our typical day, we wake up, we're getting everybody cleaned up, doing breakfast. One thing that I like to point out with my homes, and this may be just a little bit much because it's a top secret of mine, so you're getting the good stuff, right? We do uninterrupted meals at my homes. And what I mean by that is we don't allow anybody to come in and interrupt the mealtime. And why that's important is because food is nutrition, okay? And food is medicine. So if as you start to decline, you already start to lose the desire to eat, okay? And so if we can focus on getting that nutrition in you, then that helps with skincare, that helps with just your overall feeling. It helps your medications absorb better. I mean, it's a wide array of why it's important. So that's one of the things that we focus on, okay? Then after breakfast, we're going to do some type of activity, some type of exercise, something to get them engaged and up and moving. My motto is if you don't use it, you lose it. So with seniors, they can get in a rut of sitting on the couch and just watching TV. That's fine because I want them to feel like they're at home, but let's make it interesting. So during the commercial breaks, let's get up and do something. Let's do chair exercises. Let's, just love on them. Because even if we can just get them to wiggle a little bit, they're using muscles that they probably wouldn't use if they're just sitting there. Okay. During that mid-morning to early afternoon, we're getting probably a lot of visits from healthcare providers. So I partner with several companies that can come in and provide services to my seniors, whether it's dentistry, which is unheard of, to be able to have a mobile dentistry to come out. I'm very proud about that partnership.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, podiatry. I have other providers that come in, so other physicians that come in and round on my patients. I have nurses. I have CNAs from home health, CNAs from hospice companies. They all are coming in to do their, clinical assessments for the day or for the week. We have social workers. We have chaplains. We have partnerships with different churches. I have a partnership with the school that comes out and brings youth to my seniors. That is unheard of. And it does a number of wonderful things for my seniors' mental health, for them to interact with that young, vibrant population, right?
It does things for the kids too.
It does.
I have this memory from when I was in elementary school and we went to one of the retirement homes. And this little old lady told me that my smile lit up the room, and it just always stuck with me. It's like she was lit up by a young boy's smile, right? The way anybody would be when they may not have access to society the way that they did before.
Right.
And I've always remembered that. Right, of just this one time that we went to this
Stuck
retirement
with you.
home. It's like, this is people helping people.
Right, for sure. And they learn so much. There's so much wisdom that I get from my seniors. Everybody's always talking about, oh my goodness, you do this, you do that. You have no idea what I get from my seniors. And I think that's why I'm so drawn to it, consistently. Our afternoons slow down a little bit. Usually a nap will get thrown in there. And then we're geared up for dinner time. And then we're in bed by 7 because that's what we do.
Yeah.
So, that's what a typical day looks like. And not 2 days are the same, because you're throwing different disease processes in there. So any day we could have an emergency pop up with, with the patient. We could have anything. You can throw it off with a behavior from my Alzheimer's and my dementia patients. So, we have a set schedule, but sometimes we don't get to follow that, and that's okay as well.
Yeah. And how many homes do you have in the area?
So I have 4 in this area, and then we are opening another one probably around March of 2026. And then I also have some projects that are in the works in different cities, but still in Texas.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So how many live-in residents do you typically have? How many spots do you have open right now? Just in case people come across this, and I may share this with some people as well afterwards
Absolutely.
that I know have some parents that they're trying to kind of find some resources for. But how many beds do you have open? How many beds typically do you have?
Yeah. So my homes, we will have 3 residents living in there. Sometimes we'll have 4, depending on, just how the referrals come to me. But my focus has always been the smaller setting. Now, my home that will be opening up in March of next year will be a little bigger. It'll probably have between 8 to 10, maybe 12 beds in it. Still focusing on quality care though, but it will be a larger home. But my target market has always been the smaller setting, so that we can just kind of cater to those who really want to be at home, but just can't be at their personal home.
And your facilities, the homes, are they single-story homes with like exam buildings in the facility, or how does all that work? I'm just kind of trying to get a mental picture and see if we can create one for people listening.
So it looks like a home in the community that you live in right now. If you look out your front door and look across the street, that's what my home looks like. Now, when you walk inside, that's when you're going to see 3 to 4, like I said, senior citizens living there. And I try to keep it on the inside looking like a home because, again, that's my target, my market. I don't want it to look like a facility. I don't want it to look clinical or medical or sterile. I want them to feel comfortable. I know, for instance, in our living room, you think that we're running some type of sale because you'll see furniture that does not match. And there's a reason for that. It's because I ask my families to bring in their loved one's favorite chair. And I do that because when they get to this age, they become very territorial, even more so than they, if that's just their personality, it's even more so when they get, to their senior age. And if I can create a spot for them where they come out of their room and they can look in the living room and say, oh, that's my chair, it's easier to draw them out, and it's easier for them to come outside of their room. And that's so important because isolation for seniors is a huge problem. Yeah. They most of the time are left alone, and so that kind of becomes their norm, and so they want to be left alone. But we all know that it's not good for you. No. You need that human touch. You need that human interaction. And so even if it's just for a couple of hours that we can get them to sit, and we do an activity together, or just to sit and watch TV, that's healthy for their mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a real shift, and I was hearing something a couple months ago, just in these realms of like the last 50 to 75 years has really been a shift to forgetting about the elderly populations. Yeah. And a piece you were touching on earlier is like forgetting about the wisdom that they bring to these younger generations, even within family lines, right? Yeah. Because the push towards everybody's working and everybody's trying to make a living, and well, you see it in society without getting too deep into it. The kids get forgotten and the elderly get forgotten, and it's all about that prime age that's spending money.
Yep.
And there's a trillion things we could say about all that, and whether or not that's good or bad is irrelevant to this conversation. What is important is hearing you sit down and share the reminder of how important it is for our elderly companions to not be just left in the lurch.
For sure. I mentioned earlier that this entire week I've been at a different place every single day, so it's been a busy week for us. But on yesterday, I was at a senior center, and one lady came in early and she stayed later. And the entire time she talked, and she just kept saying, oh, I hope you don't mind. I know I'm probably talking too much, but, I just don't get to be around people, and I don't get to see people every day, and I don't get to talk to people. And that sat on my heart the entire day. She will be touring my facility on tomorrow. More than likely, she'll be moving in. And to go back to your other question, that is my last opening as of right now. I do work with seniors, though, so, it changes over quickly. But it was just sad to hear her verbalize that she doesn't get to talk to people. She doesn't have somebody that she can just pick up the phone and call. So, yes, with the hustle and bustle and everybody trying to make a living and trying to work and trying to just do life, we can easily forget to just check on anybody. It doesn't even have to be a senior. I think as the way our society is set up, we just forget to check in on people, and that's a huge problem. And I don't know how we can get from that, because the goal is always around doing more and doing, and just you getting what you need. Yeah. But yeah, this time of year is hard for people.
Yeah, the holidays are always tough. This, it's a timely guest to have on our show as we're headed into the holidays, and families are struggling and the elderly are struggling with connection, and reminiscing on all the things the way that they were, and trying to make it nice now, right in the moment. I have a client that I had recently got on my caseload as a therapist who early onset Parkinson's, kind of in and out of the fogginess, as that is like developing, and he's made some mistakes in his life, and so there's some discord between him and his partner and his kids. And what I find is like in the therapy sessions, it's like, how choked up and how moved emotionally he'll get when I just remind him of his value as a
Yeah.
human being. It's like,
Yep.
and I have the grace as a therapist to stand outside of some of the mistakes he's made in his life as he's trying to clean some of those things up, to where I don't have a bias. And it's hard as someone maybe close to somebody who's made some mistakes and now they're in those like elderly years to
Yeah.
remember that they're a human being. But to see the look on his face, and I've seen it many, many times before working with older clients, that like sometimes we just forget our worth and our
Right.
value.
For sure.
And so do others.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I focus on seeing each individual that is placed in my care. I love when families come and they have a laundry list of, okay, my dad only does this. My mom only does this. She needs this. She likes this. She likes that. That's fine. I love that. But I'm going to still take the time to get to know them, because a lot of that stuff is from when they were in their prime years. It's not who they are right now. And I think sometimes people just kind of go with it because it's easy and that's what we know. But the way people age and how much they change, and when I can just find the little things that can make each of my patients smile, that's what I tap into.
Yeah.
That's what I tap into, making them feel loved, and just going back to the basics of what we're supposed to be doing anyway, loving on each other. Love your neighbor. That's one of the commandments in the Bible. And it's something that I think we're so far away from, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just observationally, it's true.
Yeah.
Without even having to go into too many examples, there is a lot of dog eat dog in the world. Which is, look, it's like in a culture with the things that are prioritized, right, like work and making money and all these kind of things, it's like that's not inherently evil. I think what can be misconstrued and then become evil is if that's your only desire to the detriment to the people around you, that's probably inherently not good.
Right. People ask me all the time for help and my advice and how to get into, either the industry that I'm in, or just clinical advice, or just whatever. And it's so weird to get the comment, "I can't believe you'll help me," or you'll do that. I talked to somebody else and they wanted to charge this amount, and here you are doing it for free or doing it for this amount or whatever. And it's scary where, our thoughts and just our actions, where we're, the line that we go down, because it takes very little to be kind to someone, And I start with myself being an example in my company. I drill it in my caregivers. And a lot of people say, well, what is the requirement that, I need to have to come and work for you or to even volunteer? And I say, well, number one, you have to have the heart, because that's the only thing I can't train. So if you don't have the right heart, then you're not going to be a good fit for my business, because I can train you to do the rest. The medical parts come easy for me, but if you don't have the right heart, I can't train that. So.
Yeah. Do you ever envision like a homestead in the way that it used to be, where like, and I'm not saying the whole family lives on this homestead, but when you think about like elderly care 100 to 150 years ago, people generationally are living on a homestead kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is that ever part of a vision someday to have like land and like have people kind of just out in a facility like that, like that's like very homey and space and land and things like that? I'm always curious of like people's visions and
Right.
like what does this look like 10, 15 years from now for Lovie?
For sure. I think you've been stalking me too, right? So I have some land in East Texas, and that is the exact vision. We are going to create basically a small neighborhood of seniors, my family, And then we're also going to have entertainment on that land as well. So it's going to be a place where you can live, you can interact with others. You don't have to go too far away to have activity and do, sports and just all kind of things. So that is what I would love to see, because I think that as a society, we have gotten away from just family. My family's not that big, but the family I came from is not that big, but I love family. Now, I have a large family, several kids and animals and all that, but I want to create just what we used to have, family reunions and just where we can all come together, most importantly, at the end of life and support and love each other. I remember growing up seeing my grandmother, my great grandmother, my uncle in the back room of somebody's house being taken care of. We didn't put our loved ones in facilities. And it's not to knock people that have to do that, because we're just in a different time now where, like I explained earlier, families just can't do it because they're trying to take care of theirs. People are living longer. So it's a lot that goes into it. But I do believe that there are some key elements to how it was back in the day that we need to bring back. I think that strong family support will help our children deal with, life.
Grief and loss.
Yeah, so that they can see it and be involved with it. It's a full circle of life.
Yeah, what's funny is the 6-year-old in my life, he loves Labubus.
Okay.
And
oh, Lord. Those things, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny what kids get interested in. It reminds me of Furbies back in the 90s and all that stuff. But he had he was playing, and his uncle and aunt, they run a business, and they had their dog there at their office, and it had ran out. One of their customers actually hit the dog, and it was a puppy, and we had just been with them and the dog like 3-4 days prior, so it just hit him pretty hard. And he used the Labubu toy to walk through a whole funeral process and put the Labubu in a coffin and put it in a special place, and was even calling the Labubu by the name of the dog, and it's every human being has their relation to grief and loss, and we honored that with him, right? And he was trying to get his siblings involved in it, and we were trying to guide them to not poke fun, but to just let him work his process. And you do that with goldfish and hamsters and dogs, and it teaches
guinea pigs.
Yeah, guinea pigs. Yeah. It teaches kids how to navigate and be. I always share with my clients, it's when the day comes that your loved one, let's say your parent, passes away, you want to be the most stable person in that room.
For sure.
And being able to have those generational examples of someone passing with grace, and then the parent handling grief and loss with grace, so that then the child can feel what they need to feel.
Exactly.
Is how that goes round. And it's not even just about how you were touching on the pieces we bring back from the olden times. It's like you were saying, it's not just about it being how it was handled in the olden times, if you will. It's that these are ways that work. They've been proven to work, and we've kind of gravitated away for one reason or another that aren't good enough trade-offs. They're not quite working.
Right.
What is working is that maybe people make more money, and maybe they get to do fancier trips and stuff, and that's cool, and we can travel the world more freely these days in the world that we live in. And those things are all great, and we don't want them to go away, but not at the expense of somebody who needs care.
For sure.
That you love.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. I spend a lot of times with families having hard decisions or that are having hard decisions, and just walking them through the steps and how to, maneuver through it. I don't know how many times I've done Zoom calls with families when it's time for them to have conversations that nobody wants to talk about. Before I got into medicine, I was a hospice nurse. And the amount of anxiety that families have, needing to plan someone's funeral or talk about what to do is mind blowing.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that is guaranteed. If you were born, at some point, you're going to pass away. And that's the only thing that families don't want to talk about. It's almost like it's taboo. It's like for me, saying curse words or something. People just don't want to do it. And I've just tried to give a space that is comfortable to have those hard conversations. My kids probably think I'm crazy, but we have talked about everything. I have included them in the process with my parents and, planning the funerals and planning, everything beforehand because I want them to be comfortable with what to do in that situation. Doing that for 15 years in hospice, obviously became very comfortable with talking about death and dying. But I had an example on both ends of the spectrum with my parents. My mom, who has passed away, everything was kind of quick. We had to figure it all out because she didn't have things planned out. Whereas my dad, who thankfully is still with us, my brother and I, we laugh about it and joke about it, but he basically had us sit through a class for him to go through all of his, stuff. And it's on a spreadsheet, and he had a full presentation of what needs to be done when that time comes. So I've seen it done on both ends. I've worked in that area. So I draw from that when I'm meeting with families, and whether we are having to make a decision quickly and, hey, we got to do this because now it's the time, or we're coming down the street and we can kind of see that this is the direction that we're going and we just need to put some things in play. I just try to work with families so that they can get it done because I tell them what you don't want to do is make or have to make an emotional decision.
Yeah.
Planning a funeral, even selecting a funeral home. In the hospice world, we call it shopping for a funeral home at the time that you need it is not what you want to do. Yeah. So let's normalize being comfortable with having that discussion, just like we do planning for high school graduations or college graduations or baby showers or whatever, gender reveals, whatever it is. Let's normalize planning for when mom or dad can no longer take care of themselves. Do we want to put them in a nursing home? Do we want to put them in assisted living? Is a residential care home a better option for them? What is that going to look like? Are they going to be in somebody else's home? How much is it going to cost? I mean, there's so much that goes into that. Yeah. Let's, as a society, start normalizing having these conversations ahead of time so that it's not this big ball of anxiety that we're trying to maneuver through.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said, Lovie, for the grief and loss transitions,
yeah,
right, that you're touching on. Let's say I'm working with a young adult and then they've come to me because they're in some kind of recovery from some kind of addictive process, or they're a family member of someone who struggles with that. Those are kind of my areas of expertise.
Right.
A lot of the ongoing process is transitions in areas when they were younger that were not communicated around grief and loss. So one of the things, like when they do their timeline, I'll have them identify from 0 to their current age, all the things that were like bad, traumatizing, ugly, nasty, hurtful, alongside like all the things that were really good and exciting and fun and accolades and accomplishments.
Right.
And as they outline that, what we start to pick out, and it's almost like a theme, is what you find are all these areas that were actually moments of grief and loss that were never explained.
Yep. That's
so like
it.
It'll be little things too when it starts out, right? To start, and I do it because I know it's going to build a framework for these bigger conversations of like, you were born and you're gonna die.
Right.
That's what we're all afraid of, right? that's a huge conversation in therapy that's happening in multiple ways without directly saying it. But it'll start with little things of like, well, when I was 3, I lost my favorite doll and it was never explained what happened to it and we could never find it. Or we moved down the street and I don't remember why. And my parents never described or explained why. And it's like, the power of that sticking with a person that makes it hard for transitions is, it's observable. It's just palpable to the point where now, not only are you facing down the barrel of someone you love's end of life process, you're not then explaining to them. And this is that generational piece they didn't explain to you. And so now you're not explaining to them. And it's a learned behavior. And holy smokes, now everybody's in pain and no one is the most stable person in the room. So they're making emotional decisions. And we all know what that feels like on Black Friday when we make an emotional decision when they say it's on sale, but it's actually not because we could have found it on sale somewhere else.
Yeah. It's something that is we as a society, we've got to do better, you know. And I think having these conversations, digging into it, and people just being more open and vulnerable about it helps. I think a lot of people, you know, have a bad relationship with social media, but I think it helps in that aspect because it shows different people and how they deal with it. So if somebody gets on and they are open and transparent about it, then more people are able to see, oh, okay, well, they handled it this way or they struggled with it this way, or it's okay to talk about it, you know? So that's something too that we have coming down the pipeline, is a podcast that will talk about these hard topics, because what I'm finding going into the community is like my schedule for 2026 is halfway filled already. And it's about people wanting to have these conversations and, you know, draw people out. But there's only so much, you know, I could do. I'm still trying to, you know, run my business and different things that I have going on. But I believe that the conversations need to be had. So we're looking at how can we meet the need of reaching more people with the information. So, yeah, we may be joining you.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear it, because when you turn on social media, you're gonna see the Mr. Beasts or the 20-year-olds acting like 10-year-olds, and that's what goes viral, right? Or just the smut that exists that's just like too gross to want to subject your child to it, but it's everywhere, right?
It is.
And I'm not here to go in on other content creators and the way that media exists, but it's like then you'll see things that are like really helpful and just the average provider providing good information, and that information doesn't get out the way that one would hope, but the people who need to hear it find their way. It's like we found that with our platform as well. It's like we're not ultra viral. Every now and then we will, but people that need it, they find it and they engage with it. They ask questions, they reach out. It's a valuable platform to have good discussions, and people appreciate when you just don't. It's like one of the things I've learned in doing this podcast for 2 years is don't venture outside of our scope of practice.
Right.
You know, and I never have, and I never will, and I don't care if that means that we don't go viral at times. It is what it is. We're doing what we do, and we share the information that we know, and the people who need it find it helpful, and that's great. And I think as you start yours, you'll find that to be the case as well.
Yeah.
It's like the media part of it on the education side is hugely helpful, right? And it's, for us, it's like part of that is like, well, it's for fun and for free. But it does inform people on what you are providing.
Right, for sure. I had the biggest compliment the other day. A lady said, you know, there's a lot of residential care home owners that I've met, but one thing I can tell you, Lovey, and I can say, you know, unequivocally about you is that you do you well. And I loved that she took the time to pour that into me, because that's exactly what I try to do. I stay in my lane. I do what I do, and I try to do it to the best of my ability. I don't worry about what other care homeowners are doing in their homes. Does it affect the entire, you know, industry? Probably, but I need to focus on what I'm doing and my patients. And I think if more people did that, it would make the world a better place, you know? Everybody's always saying, what can make the world a better place? I think if you focus in on what you're supposed to be doing and you do it to the best of your ability, then there's no time for anything else, you know? What God has for me is for me. And I believe that the doors that He has opened for me, the people that He has brought into my life, it's you can't explain it, you know. The relationships that I have, the rooms that I've walked into, that it's like, okay, what am I doing here? How did I get here? You know, it's unexplainable. So that's what keeps me grounded. And I'm just glad that people can see that, because I think that it's important. So
Absolutely. Well, where can the people find? I know you would kind of in the video prior to sitting down, you'd given some information, but for those who are following along with us live, where can they find you? What's the direct link to your website?
yeah, so I am on all social media platforms by my entire name of my business, which is A Touch of Love Care Home. We're on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and whatever else is out there. I'm on LinkedIn by Lovie Baxter, Facebook by both Lovie Baxter and A Touch of Love. My website is A Touch of Love Care Home. So I try to be consistent so you can find me.
.com.
.com.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a loved one who is needing care and you're open to looking in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, follow those links that'll be provided, a touch of love carehome.com, and see if it's a fit. Talk with Lovie. You know, just as I've gotten to know her, she'll sit down, she'll talk to you, and it'll be a wonderful conversation. And if it's not the right fit, I'm sure she knows someone who might have a piece of information that would be. So
Absolutely.
reach out, give it a look. Like Lovie has said, you can come and take a tour.
Yep.
Yeah. And we hope it's of value to you guys as you're listening along. Is there any last just kind of words that you would share with our audience?
Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out for help. I do all things senior citizen. So even if you want to keep your loved one in your home or in their home, there are so many services that probably could be utilized. So you don't know what you don't know. Let me, as the expert, come in and be your medical concierge that can walk you through or just show you what direction to go through, because there are services out there and your loved one deserves good care. I'm passionate about it. I love what I do. I would love to have your loved one in one of my homes. But if that's not the right fit for right now, let's talk about it and let's see what services they need and allow A Touch of Love Care Home to provide the care your loved one deserves.
Perfect. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. It was great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Lovie Baxter. We break the cycle here every Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. You will see in the new year, we're going to be going through some fun and exciting changes. A lot of things are coming down the pike for the Breaking Cycle therapy and radio podcast. But I want to share this is our last episode of the year, and we are so very thankful to the viewership. We've grown a lot this year. You guys have supported us so much. It's been exciting. It's been fun. And we have some awesome things coming in 2026 for you guys. So tune back in here in January. We'll be back. We have a co-host that's going to be joining us, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it. So we will see you in 2026. We love you. Like, subscribe, comment. We'll see you in the new year. Take care.